I'm so frustrated with myself. I accidentally hit the end button rather than the pause button. So I unfortunately have to continue the last video on another video. But at any rate, we were on the star card, and I was indicating that with the star card, the early Italian cards merely had, like in this case, a woman holding a star. And in the Rosenwald and the Budapest, they were simply represented by just a star card, just the image of a star. So when you see a card representing the star, and it's only the star, or maybe a person holding it, in the case of the Visconti Sforza, well, you could think of what you do with a star. You can wish upon a star, right? So the star card can be inspirational. It can be wish fulfillment or wishing upon a star. But when we get to the other cards that come a bit later, we have a clear reference to the zodiac sign Aquarius, which sent me down another rabbit hole because I really wanted to figure out why was the star card associated with the zodiac sign of Aquarius. And because remember, when I was learning and teaching myself, there wasn't a whole lot of information on where these images came from. And so I started reading about Aquarius, the constellation of Aquarius. And I learned that when this constellation of Aquarius appeared in the night sky in the Middle East, on that line of latitude, or is it longitude? I think latitude is this way, right? That's when the rains came. And so when the rains came, they knew to take opportunity of the water in the rivers, and that's when irrigation could happen. So the water bearer associated with the star card was an image of somebody, or the concept of irrigation, right? The rains came. It was time to do irrigation. It was time to take water from the river and, pour it onto the land, So at some point it just became, this became symbolic for that. Now, the 7-pointed star of the Visconti Sforza would have been a reference to Venus, because Venus, the way she breaks light or whatever, is associated or symbolized by 7 rays. So I think it's a clear reference to Venus. And, after the TDM appeared, I think even in the Italian decks, the image of a water bearer, became the symbol. And, as it was copied over and over, maybe they didn't realize, what it was exactly, whether the water was being poured from one to the other, or, taken from the water and put on the land. But at any rate, some type of water bearer became the norm, right? And here, they seem to have gotten it correctly, right? Or according to that theory that I have, that I don't think I'm alone, right? Because when this constellation of Aquarius came, the waters came, and that's when irrigation could happen. So this is, I think, a clear reference to that concept. So the image that we see in the star card, how it has evolved, has been a reference to that. But you see, when you do tarot and you study the images, you learn about all kinds of things. I would never have really known about that had I not, take it upon myself to, discover or to investigate why, the star card is associated with a water bearer. So, of course, the message then with the water bearer, I don't know if I touched on it sufficiently, would be an indication that take advantage of an opportunity. So the star card could represent, at least for me, the way I understood it, has meant that you take advantage of a situation. Things are right for an opportunity and to take advantage of the opportunity. So whether you're, seeing the star as something to wish upon or some type of inspirational concept, or with the understanding that conditions are correct to take advantage of something, you know, I think it would be influenced in this case, in the case of the star card, how you might interpret the card. Now we're moving quite along with the moon card. And here we have a simple reference of a woman, probably Diana, holding the moon. I say Diana because many of the images from the Italian decks come from antiquity. And, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if that represented Diana. However, in the Budapest, we have a simple figure, much like this, holding the moon, the symbol for the moon. And it doesn't appear to be Diana. And in the Rosenwald of the same period of time, we just have a simple rendering of the moon. So what happens when the moon comes out? Well, it's nighttime. So things that happen in the dark, things that happen at night. Now, I've written a blog article that's very detailed about where I think the image of the moon card as we know it now came from. And it's very detailed, and I probably should or could do a video just on it by itself. But I think it has to do with maybe a misunderstanding of what was seen, much like the Hermit. Remember? The Hermit, who was really the star card. Let's see. Where is that Hermit? I put him away. Remember how the Hermit was the star card, right? Well, I think that the moon card may have been misunderstood by the time the TDM was created. And it was a case like that. However, I may not be right, but I'll put the link down below so you can read about it. I'm not going to get into it in this video. But before I made that assumption, or not assumption, but my own discovery or my own curiosity took me down that road, I did take the time to try to figure out about why a crustacean would be in the moon card. And I read about crustaceans and crayfish, and apparently they try to come out at night. And, you know, these dogs kind of represent enemies of the crayfish, because if the crayfish were to come out where they appear, they'd be eaten, right? So their ability to do what their instinct tells them to do is thwarted, because if they come out, they'll be attacked or they'll be eaten or whatever. Now, I'm not really sure if that's really how this image came to be, or if it really came to be because of my thought that it was misunderstood from another card and misrepresented by the time we got to the French TDM. So I don't know which it is. But in any case, you know, even if it is, you know, the inability to you know, do something because there are enemies about, there is a sort of type of treachery about the moon card, right? I mean, things that happen at night can be as banal as having a evening job, you know, or the late shift. It could be as banal as that in a reading. But, you know, with other cards that might appear, or with the way it's represented here, it could suggest that there are things that are happening outside of your control that could limit your ability to do what it is that you're setting out to do. So I think either understanding of the card kind of takes us to, you know, a similar place. And we see, we've seen this image before, as this one is very similar. Oh, and I wanted to point out, oh no, I think it's on the sun card. Oh no, never mind. It's on the sun card. Well, that's kind of a fun thing. And then, of course, by the time we get here, we have, you know, it didn't deviate very much from the TDM. The moon in profile, maybe a type of eclipse happening. The two towers, the two dogs, the river between, the crustacean trying to come up. Okay, moving right along with the Sun card in the Visconti Sforza, we have a reference to Apollo, the sun god. This would have been understood as the Sun card, or a reference to Apollo. In the in the Budapest, we have the sun, radiating, providing growth. In the Rosenwald, we have a simple sun card. So if you were only looking at a symbol of a simple sun card, or the story of Apollo, you could recount this, kind of similarly to almost like the tower, except I don't think it's trying to show the negative aspects. I think it's trying to show, the wonder of the sun. When the sun card pops up, it feels good. When you wake up in the morning, all the little demons that tortured your brain at night go away somehow, because you're so distracted by the duties of the day and the other things that the day brings, that, the sunshine, and the daylight brings clarity. All the things that were underhanded about the evening maybe aren't as scary in the daytime. At some point, we have the image of two individuals within a garden wall, maybe brothers, maybe. Sometimes they're boys, sometimes they're ambiguous genders, sometimes they're male and female. But in any case, the Sun card feels happy, feels good. And just think of the sun. Think of what the sun brings. The sun brings clarity. The sun brings an interest in romance even. And I love this sun card. Look, this is the Parentaro. The sun is smoking a pipe. But I like in, the tradition of the Italian decks that there is a garden wall, and I think, let me see, I don't want to pause again, because every time I pause, I end up having to do it over again. I don't want to keep doing that to you, because I keep pushing the wrong button. Darn. I have to go through too many cards to find I wanted to find the Metelli. All right, I'm going to do it. Okay, guys, bear with me, and hopefully I won't push the wrong button. No, okay, the Metelli from 1660 Italian deck still has the reference to the sun god, so Apollo. So maybe it's not an Italian tradition that the wall appears, but it does appear in later Italian decks, right? So the sun just brings to mind things that happen in the daylight, and the good things that happen, right? If you have it follows the evening, it follows the moon, right? So it follows nighttime activity. It brings clarity sometimes to a challenging situation. When you see the sun card, I think you could probably safely say that it brings clarity. Now, in many of the Italian decks, the angel card, as they called it, now we call it the judgment card, was the highest ranking card, even higher than the world card. Somehow the world card became the last, the ultimate card in the deck of tarot. But it really was the judgment card that seemed to have come last, and they called it the angel card. So here are the early Italian versions. We have the Visconti Sforza, 1450-ish, 1440-ish, I don't know, 1440-ish to 1460-ish, something like that. Then we have the Budapest, maybe around the same period of time as the Rosenwald. So in these cases, it's an angel, right, with a reference to, the resurrection of the dead, right, the final judgment. And it doesn't appear as though it changed much. We still have that by the time we get to the TDM. you know, and the other Italian decks that are later, 1830, 1860-ish, the same idea, and even here. So we have the concept of, you know, facing the music, you know, facing the music. You know, we're called to answer. Oh, where'd it go? We're called to answer for our actions. We're called to be accountable for. And when I see this, that's exactly how I feel, that we're, you know, called upon to be accountable for our lives. And I neglected to show the Metelli judgment card. In this case, it's an angel, simply an angel blowing a horn. So the Italian tradition really is varied. This is from 1660. This is from 1440-ish to 60-ish. So it may have been understood that this was, you know, calling to mind the Last Judgment, where this is more explicitly described, as are all the other cards that I showed already. And now the final card, and I have to say, if you've hung with me through the end of this little series, you know, I got to say, congratulations, you're a tarot geek just like me. You know, that you found it interesting enough to tolerate my pushing the wrong button and my stumbling and, you know, my mistakes that I make. I appreciate that you've stuck with me. Okay, we're on the final card. Now, here is a case where I really love the old Italian card of, you know, cherubs holding the world, or in the case of the Budapest, an angel holding, you know, a worldly scene. And even with the Rosenwald, right, there's a scene of the world. But at some point, it kind of became, oh, and here's another one from the Metelli, 1660s Bologna, right? The world, Atlas or Hercules, you know, a reference to antiquity, the world, right? Worldly things. But at some point, the imagery kind of changed, you know? And I don't know if this is a reference, you know, certainly these appear to be biblical references to the four, you know, maybe fathers of the, yeah, I'm not, I used to be a Catholic, and I went through 12 years of catechism, but, you know, I kind of blocked that stuff out of my head. So I don't remember, you know, maybe they're the four evangelists or whatever. And this could be representative of Christ, you know, ascension into heaven, although at some point it appears as though he became a woman or of ambiguous gender. But it does seem as though there is a reference to, you know, some type of religious or spiritual ascension. And it occurs within a mandala. So I don't know if, you know, the mandala was a misrepresentation or a misunderstanding of one of these images. But I don't know. I think they just changed the image. I think they changed their mind. So when I see this card, it, you know, to me means a manifestation of accomplishment on earth, right? Achieving what you set out to do. And for me, it makes sense that this card would come before the angel card, because you accomplish your ambitions, your goals. You have able, you know, this is a different message altogether, but I don't typically use the Metelli, so I don't worry about it. But here it could be the burdens of the world, right? But there's a sense when you see this card that, you know, you've achieved greatness. You've achieved, or you will achieve, what you set out to do in the world, right? But when we get to this card, we, you know, when it changes or morphs into this, it's kind of a different thing, you know. You know, and I can't account for that unless, because, you know, I can't account for how this happened unless when, you know, the angel card, you know, to me it makes sense that when you accomplish, you know, what you set out to, or you accomplish your goals, you achieve great things in life, then it makes sense to me that the angel card comes last, because then you have to atone for everything, you know. So everything you did to get here, you know, you have to account for in the afterlife. So it makes sense that this this card is followed by this card. But then at some point, you know, maybe this card did become some kind of ascension into heaven. You know, if not Christ, then generally, you know, the world spirit, the Monday, I forget the name. It's escaping me, but you know what I mean. The Anima Mundi. You know, the ascension into heaven, or the ascension above and beyond earth, the earthly realm, you know, ascension into a spiritual realm, right? I think these cards, this card kind of represents better the concept of achievement, manifestation of what you set out to do, or a goal is achieved, or greatness is achieved. And, you know, this card being more of an ascension to a higher level, you know, in which case it makes sense that this card is the final card, and this card is before the angel card, where we atone for our thing, you know, our worldly life. So I hope that end made sense to you. I'm getting a little bit tired, and you know, I get tired. So I hope this has been interesting to you. And as I said before, congratulations, you know, for if you've watched every minute of these 4 or 5 videos I've done on this origin story of these cards. You are a tarot geek bona fide, and you have my respect. In fact, I'd really love to know if you did, and comment down below so I know who you are. Until next time, friends, I probably won't be doing another video until the weekend. The 29, 30, the 31st, or August 1st will probably be my next video. So until next time, friends, stay well, peace.